Much later, Georgie awoke, disorientated, confused as to what roused her. It took a moment to recall where she was. Back at the crummy motel. Georgie sat upright on the double bed. She strained to listen and see. Her eyes grew accustomed to the dim light penetrating the flimsy curtains and the clock radio that glowed 11:59 p.m. A bad dream? What if it wasn't? Goosebumps pricked her skin. Although situated on one of the main drags into town, the motel had minimal passing traffic at night, and the units were set back. It was doubtful that road noise had stirred her. As far as she knew, only hers, the manager's residence, and one other unit were occupied. She pulled back the curtain. Unit 1, non-smoking section, in darkness. Ditto the fat manager's house and the rooms between. The car park contained her Spider and a Volvo outside the first unit. If the manager had a carport or garage, it must be attached to the other side of his place. Georgie dropped the curtain. It's nothing. Go back to bed. She snuggled under the bed covers and squeezed her eyes, willing sleep. Fuck, there was something out there. Or someone. Footsteps? She lay rigid as her pulse thudded in her ears. She told herself to calm down. Blamed a stray dog for the crunch of gravel and forced life into her frozen limbs. She tiptoed to the front door, but each step sounded too loud. Georgie slipped the security chain in place. The snick of the chain resounded through the unit. Her breaths turned shallow and fast and audible. She checked the button on the front door. Locked. She couldn't remember if the bathroom window was shut. It was even darker in there, so she crept with hands outstretched. She misjudged the layout, bashed her shin against the toilet, and stifled a curse. She eased down the lid, stood on it, reached for the window. As she wound it in, she heard a new noise. Georgie stilled before cranking faster until the window shut firm, then snuck into the bedroom. She pushed the sole armchair against the door. It was a slow, terrifying manoeuvre. The heavy chair grazed the industrial carpet. The scrapes were a shrill beacon that announced her location to the intruder. Georgie reached for her phone. The front awning rattled. She fumbled the mobile and it fell to the floor. Shit, she whispered, dropping to her knees to grope for it. More footsteps in the gravel. A pause, then a metallic scrape. A key, or pick, inserted the throat of the door lock, wiggled and withdrew. Her fingers struck, then wrapped around the mobile. Another key twisted in the lock. She remembered with horror. Maddie rang after she'd returned from the pub. The phone beeped and disconnected. She'd stupidly let her battery go flat and come to Daylesford without the charger. She dropped the useless handset. Georgie heard a muffled cuss and the jangle of keys. She cursed choosing a motel so cheap that the unit didn't have a landline. Not that it made much difference. The part-time cop shop on Camp Street would be as empty as the room next door. When help arrived from Ballarat or Castlemaine or wherever, she would be dead or have dealt with it alone. Well, I opt for the latter, thanks. Despite her brave internal dialogue, with each of the intruder's moves, Georgie grew more scared. She grabbed the home brand fly spray and Bible. Motel room trustees. Practical weapons. She heard a rough male voice. Her nerves screamed. She held her breath again until her lips numbed. Breathe. Be quiet. Another man replied. She strained. Did she recognise the speakers? Impossible to tell. They seemed to be arguing outside her window, but quietly, so as not to rouse the occupant. Her. She couldn't decipher what they said. The men's voices became fainter. There was a cuss and scuffle in the gravel. And shortly after, the distant sound of an engine. Then, quietness. Blissful fucking silence. Except for the pounding in Georgie's veins. She sank onto the floor and hugged knees to her chest. Her entire body jittered. You will only get one warning. Was she on borrowed time? Eventually, her eyes fluttered. She jolted upright, sucked in a breath, and listened. Her smokes lay on the bedside table, a short distance away, but 2 attempts to work her jelly legs failed. She gave up. Soon, her chin dropped. She vowed to stay awake, then caught herself coming out of the next doze.